Welcome everyone to this very special, and I promise, deeply informative edition of our AI on AI Horizons for CxOs podcast, where today's focus is on something that's sparking fresh conversations across the enterprise universe: large action models, or LAMs. I'm thrilled to have three brilliant guests with me, three experts steeped in the art and science of bridging the gap between big language models and, well, tangible real-world actions. Before I hand the mic over, let me just set the stage for why this topic matters so profoundly for executives, directors, department heads, and anyone else responsible for steering their organizations into the future of AI. You see, for the past few years, we've all been amazed at the progress with large language models. GPT this, GPT that, ChatGPT, Bard, you name it, and their ability to generate text that sounds eerily human. But many of us in the boardroom have been asking, okay, they can write essays, summarize reports, and maybe even pass a bar exam, but how do we translate all that brilliance into real, actionable workflows that deliver genuine enterprise value? That's precisely where LAMs come in. Imagine a model that doesn't just talk, but actually does, like it logs into your CRM, updates records, or highlights text in a Word document, or maybe it's configured to physically operate a robot arm on an assembly line. We're talking about orchestrating tasks in ways that go well beyond just clever conversation. Now, in a 45-minute discussion, we'll really dive deep, way beyond the surface, to explore how LAMs are built, how to integrate them into your existing workflows, how to identify the best low-hanging fruit and pilot projects in your enterprise, and how to handle the pressing concerns around safety, reliability, and ethical use. By the end of this extended conversation, you'll leave with a solid grasp not only of what LAMs are, but also of what it takes for your organization to adopt them responsibly, effectively, and profitably. And as usual, we'll keep it lively, with a dash of humor and those delightful ums and uhs that remind us we're still human in this swirling ocean of advanced AI. Before we dive deep into today's topic, I'd like to introduce our esteemed experts, Shimmer, Shri, and Venus.
Hey there, I'm the lead AI architect with a focus on converting cutting-edge research into practical enterprise solutions. I've spent a decade working on advanced natural language systems, and lately I've been obsessed with bridging the gap between language models and real, tangible actions that streamline business operations.
Hi everyone, I'm a principal consultant specializing in AI-driven process automation, and I've worked alongside CxOs to uncover bottlenecks and replace them with intelligent, scalable solutions. I love guiding teams towards sustainable innovation, with just the right balance between human input and automated brilliance.
Hello. I come from an academic research background, exploring how agentic AI can tackle complex, real-world tasks. Now I help enterprises adopt these technologies responsibly. My passion is demystifying AI for executives and ensuring that every deployment aligns with ethical standards and delivers measurable ROI.
Let's get started. Shimmer, I'd love if you could begin by painting the big picture. What are LAMs in simple terms, and why do you think they signal this next leap in AI maturity?
Absolutely, host. Thanks for giving me the floor. All right, so let's set this up by recalling what large language models, LLMs, originally did. They took vast corpora of text, learned statistical patterns, and then generated human-like responses to queries. Impressive, right? But if we look at it from a CxO perspective, we often ask, how do we leverage this for actual operational excellence? How do we get from this thing can talk and reason about text to this thing can solve real business bottlenecks by performing tasks humans used to do, freeing them up for higher-level strategic work? That's precisely where large action models come into play. A LAM can interpret an instruction, say, file these email attachments in the correct SharePoint folder, then notify the relevant project manager, and actually do it. It doesn't just list the steps, it executes them. This bridging of language and action is a huge milestone because it effectively extends the cognitive abilities of AI into the real and digital worlds where enterprise processes live. Think about supply chain tasks like checking inventory levels across multiple systems, generating a purchase order, and confirming with a vendor. Previously, you'd have a person or a specialized script do that, but if you can combine the interpretive powers of an LLM with the operational muscle of LAM, you essentially have an autonomous agent that can adapt in real time, reading new data as it appears and adjusting the plan accordingly. Let's not forget the potential for scaling. If you train your LAMs well with domain-specific data and environment integration, for instance, hooking them up to your enterprise resource planning systems, your CRMs, your HR tools, they can handle a broad set of tasks that frees up your employees for more creative or strategic initiatives. That's the big idea. The why behind it is that we've found a gap in just text-based generation. The next wave is about taking these generative insights and hooking them into actual processes. It's like giving your AI arms and legs, or at least digital appendages, to do the heavy lifting across your IT landscape. Of course, there are challenges. You need robust data pipelines, clarity around what tasks are truly valuable to automate, and checks to ensure your LAM doesn't go haywire, like inadvertently deleting critical data or making erroneous financial transactions. But as long as you plan properly, the benefits are immense, from cost savings to efficiency gains to entirely new lines of service. So that's the broad overview. It's not about replacing people with robots en masse. It's about enabling your workforce to operate at a higher level of value creation. Over to you, Shri. Perhaps you can elaborate on how LAMs differ from LLMs under the hood.
Sure thing, Shimmer. First off, let me say I'm delighted to be here, especially because it's, fun to geek out on the distinctions between an LLM that can talk and a LAM that can also act. You mentioned bridging the gap between text and action. Let's get technical for a moment. LLMs are basically massive neural networks trained on token prediction tasks. Given a sequence of words, they predict the next word, and so on. That's fantastic for generating human-like text or summarizing documents. But if I want that same model to open up a Word file and highlight Hello World, I'm basically out of luck because it doesn't have the conceptual or functional link to the environment where that text manipulation occurs. A LAM, on the other hand, is integrated with what we often call an agentic framework. Think of it like this. The LAM still has that language processing brain, but it's hooked into modules that know how to interact with GUIs, APIs, or even physical sensors and actuators in a robotics context. That means the model can parse your high-level request, highlight text in Word, and then break it down into actionable steps. Open the file, find the phrase "Hello World," activate the highlight function, confirm success, and so on. And critically, it can adapt if something unexpected happens, like if the text isn't there, or if the highlight tool is located in a different place than usual. That dynamic adaptation is key because real-world tasks are rarely as straightforward as the tutorials. Now, behind the scenes, we're talking about specialized training. We often start with an LLM, then fine-tune it on task-action datasets, where each training example might look like. Task. Summarize these lines from an Excel sheet into a chart, paired with action. Open Excel, read lines, generate chart, embed chart in PowerPoint. The model learns the notion of, this is the user's desired outcome, and these are the mechanical steps to get there. Additionally, we have environment simulators, or real-world integration layers, like App Agent, that facilitate the model's capacity to see what's going on in the environment, maintain memory of what it's done, and modify its plan if something is off. If you think about it, this is a baby step toward AGI in that the model is beginning not just to reason about language, but to manipulate the real or digital world in ways that are meaningful to humans. Of course, we're still far from machines having full autonomy in the sense of robust general intelligence that can do absolutely everything, but LAMs move us closer. They enable domain-specific autonomy, if you will, which, for an enterprise, is practically gold. If you can handle tasks like approve expense reports based on these rules, but escalate edge cases for human review, you've basically replaced a repetitive grunt task with an always-on, always consistent digital agent. That's huge for CFOs or controllers looking to streamline finance operations. So hopefully that clarifies some of the under-the-hood differences between LLMs and LAMs. Next, I'm eager to hear from Venus about real-world examples that might resonate with senior leaders who are trying to see how to implement this. Where do you see LAMs really shining, Venus?
Great question, Shri, and thanks, host, for having me on. This is definitely one of my favorite topics these days. Let's ground this in real, tangible use cases, because sometimes these AI discussions feel too abstract for busy executives who want actionable insights. Let's start with something that resonates across many organizations: the dreaded repetitive HR tasks, like scanning resumes or onboarding new hires. For instance, an LAM can parse a natural language instruction like process the incoming job applications, rank them by required skills, send follow-up emails to the top 20% candidates, and schedule interviews for next week. Then the LAM actually logs into your ATS, applicant tracking system, reads each resume, extracts relevant data, organizes them in your standardized format, and triggers an email to each candidate with a unique scheduling link. If the system sees that a candidate responded with, "I'm only available on Fridays," it can adapt by offering them the next available Friday slot. All of this used to require, well, an HR coordinator spending countless hours. Another example is in supply chain logistics, say in a manufacturing setting. The LAM can monitor inventory across multiple systems, like your internal ERP, or even an external vendor's API, then determine you're running low on a critical component, generate a purchase request, confirm the order with the supplier, track shipping updates, and notify you if there's a delay. It's basically automating an entire workflow that used to require constant human oversight. And let's not forget marketing tasks: preparing performance reports, analyzing campaign metrics, generating slide decks for executive meetings. Instead of some poor marketing associate staying up late, exporting data from different analytics tools and manually crafting slides, the LAM can do it automatically, highlight key insights, and even offer suggestions for improvement. Suddenly, your marketing folks can focus on strategy rather than data wrangling. Another big place LAMs are starting to shine is in IT operations and DevOps. You can instruct a LAM to check the status of server clusters, identify any resource bottlenecks, then spin up additional virtual machines if CPU usage exceeds 80% for more than 10 minutes, and log all changes in the infrastructure report. The LAM can follow these steps end to end, basically functioning as an automated site reliability engineer that works 24/7. The point is that anywhere you see a repetitive, rules-based, but still somewhat nuanced process that currently demands staff to interpret text or data and then take certain actions, that's a prime candidate for LAM integration. And for CxOs, that means real ROI, whether from operational cost savings, faster cycle times, or simply having employees free to tackle more strategic initiatives that require creativity and human judgment. That's probably the biggest takeaway. LAMs are not just a cool tech demonstration. They are a strategic investment with potentially massive payoffs. Host, maybe you can steer us next toward the bigger question. How do executives approach the transition to LAMs in a methodical, risk-managed way?
Absolutely, Venus. That's the million-dollar question for sure. I've talked to a lot of executives who say, yes, I see the potential, but how do I start? So let's break it down. Typically, you want to begin with a well-defined pilot project, some process that is high volume, relatively stable, and not so mission-critical that a mistake would be disastrous. You gather the data for that process, the task plan pairs, the historical logs, the user queries. You refine them into a format that your LAM can consume. Then you either train from scratch, or more likely fine-tune a pre-trained LLM to evolve it into a LAM that has domain understanding, plus the capabilities to interact with your specific systems. The next step is environment integration, typically done through an agent framework like App Agent or a custom solution your IT folks have built. You have to ensure that the LAM can see or read the user interface elements, interact with APIs, and handle unexpected states, like the website is down or the file path doesn't exist. A robust memory and feedback loop is crucial too. The LAM should keep track of what's been done, have a sense of history, and revise its plan if new info arises. Of course, a big part of a CxO's job is risk management, so you'd want robust offline evaluation, like in a sandbox environment. You'd run simulated tasks, measure accuracy, see how the LAM handles errors, and maybe have a human in the loop for final approvals. Once you feel confident in your pilot project's reliability, you move to limited production deployment, where it operates on real tasks, but perhaps under close supervision. Over time, as trust grows, you can scale the scope. Maybe start with 10 tasks, then 50, then hundreds. But keep in mind that as you scale, you also have to think about data governance, security, and compliance. You might need to manage confidential information or personally identifiable data, so ensure that the LAM's environment is locked down. That said, if done right, the payoff is enormous. Think of all the man-hours you can reallocate, not to mention the cycle time improvements in processes that no longer require manual oversight. So from a leadership standpoint, the main points are: pick a strategic pilot, ensure you have the data, adopt a strong agent framework, do thorough offline testing, then scale responsibly. Shimmer want to expand on how data readiness and the concept of collecting robust task action datasets factor into success.
Absolutely, host. Data readiness is, in my opinion, the secret sauce. If you talk to folks who've tried and failed to integrate advanced AI solutions, a common theme is junk in, junk out. For LAM to operate effectively, it needs high-quality data about what the tasks are, how they're typically done by experts, where the pitfalls might be, and what environment states matter. So your training data might be twofold. First, you have task plan data, like an abstract sequence of steps that shows how an expert would reason about the process. Second, you have task action data, those granular instructions that show exactly how you click or type or call an API. Now, collecting that data can be done in multiple ways. You can glean it from user logs, from existing documentation or standard operating procedures, or you might do a manual labeling effort if the tasks are too nuanced. Some organizations even record screen sessions of their employees performing tasks. That footage can then be turned into training examples. Another key piece is that you might iterate on your dataset as the LAM starts to learn. You might notice, for example, that the LAM stumbles when it encounters a pop-up message. That's a clue you need more examples that include pop-up handling. Or maybe the LAM gets confused when your internal system changes the layout. You then collect new data that reflects those changes. It's very much a living dataset approach. On top of that, domain specialization is crucial. If you're in finance, you want your LAM to understand ledger entries, reconciliation tasks, financial regulatory constraints. If you're in healthcare, the LAM needs to handle PHI responsibly, follow HIPAA guidelines, and interface with EHR systems. This is where specialized training or fine-tuning can drastically improve performance and reduce the risk of errors. So from a CxO's perspective, dedicating time and resources to building or curating these task action datasets is an upfront investment that pays off. Because once your LAM is properly trained, you can deploy it in many areas. But if you skimp on data preparation, you'll spend more time firefighting random errors. Also, I can't stress enough the importance of feedback loops in production. If a LAM is out there interacting with real users, set up a mechanism where those users can quickly flag issues or provide clarifications. The LAM can then retrain or refine its action policy. So it's a continuous improvement cycle that mirrors how humans learn on the job. Speaking of continuous improvement, Shri, maybe you can talk about how organizations can maintain safety and reliability as these LAMs become more and more integrated.
Absolutely, Shimmer. This is like one of the biggest concerns when I talk to leaders. They worry about an automated system making a catastrophic error, like let's say deleting a crucial set of records or sending out an email with sensitive data. So the first line of defense is robust offline evaluation. You run the LAM in a test environment, throw all sorts of weird corner cases at it, like what if the internet connection drops? Or what if the user typed in the wrong ID number? You see how the model responds and fix any failure points. Next, you implement what we call guardrails in the agent system. For instance, if the LAM tries to delete a file, maybe it has to ask for confirmation or pass through a permission check. If it tries to make a financial transaction over a certain threshold, it might require a human manager's approval. These checks can be coded into the environment integration layer so that the LAM literally cannot do certain actions without clearance. Another strategy is tiered autonomy. On day one, your LAM might only have read access and can propose actions, but a human has to confirm them. After a proven track record, you give it partial write access with some constraints. Eventually, if you're truly confident, you might let it operate fully autonomously, but only for tasks below a certain risk threshold. I'd also mention that explaining or logging the LAM's decisions is important for accountability. If something does go awry, you want an audit trail of what instructions it received, what environment states it observed, and why it decided to do X or Y. This leads us into the realm of ethical considerations. Because as we let these models run wild in digital or physical spaces, we have to ensure they don't discriminate inadvertently, or break compliance, or just cause confusion by not being transparent about their actions. So yes, safety, reliability, and ethics form a triad that CxOs must address up front. But with the right planning, like having those permission layers, audit logs, and a plan for incremental autonomy, you can mitigate a lot of the risk. So imagine taking the traditional idea of SaaS, where a platform hosts and manages software, and flipping it into service as a software, where these large action models become the service itself, slowing down, running end-to-end tasks on demand with minimal human intervention. In other words, you're not just accessing a web-based tool, you're effectively leveraging a digital doer that can interpret, execute, and adapt to real-world workflows as a fully managed service. Venus, would you like to add some color on how the concept of agentic AI ties into future visions, like...
Definitely, Sri. Agentic AI essentially means AI that isn't just passively answering queries, but actively taking steps in pursuit of a goal. LAMs are a prime example of agentic AI. They interpret instructions, plan their approach, execute actions, and adapt to feedback. In a sense, they have a rudimentary agency. Now, that obviously raises a lot of philosophical and ethical questions about what happens if these systems become extremely sophisticated. But from a practical standpoint, it's enough to note that each incremental improvement in LAM technology, better ability to interpret context, better planning algorithms, better adaptability, moves us a step closer to broader forms of AI that can operate across multiple domains with minimal supervision. Some call that a stepping stone toward AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. We're not there yet, but we're on a path that's interesting, because we're seeing tasks that used to be purely in the realm of human cognition, like triaging complex instructions, dealing with multiple data sources, even making creative leaps, slowly become automatable in certain contexts. For business leaders, it signals that AI is no longer a toy or a cool trick. It's becoming something that can truly transform organizational structures, job roles, and entire industries. It also signals the importance of having a strategic AI roadmap. Where do LAMs fit into your 3-year, 5-year plan for digital transformation? Are you aiming to fully automate your back office or augment key teams? Because if you wait too long, competitors who adopt these technologies might leapfrog you in efficiency and innovation. But of course, you don't want to jump in blindly either. It's that balancing act. In the near term, though, we expect an explosion of specialized LAMs, like for finance, for healthcare, for HR, and each one trained on domain-specific tasks. Over time, the lines might blur as these specialized LAMs merge or share knowledge, edging us closer to more generalized solutions. Host, I wonder if we can talk about the cultural and organizational mindset shifts that CxOs need to champion. Because let's be real, deploying LAMs is as much a people and process transformation as it is a technical one.
You read my mind, Venus. Culture is everything. I've seen organizations with top-notch tech stacks fail to adopt new AI tools simply because employees or middle managers either don't trust them or feel threatened by automation. So from a leadership standpoint, you need a compelling narrative that says, we're bringing in LAMs not to replace you, but to empower you, to free you from mundane tasks so you can unleash your creativity, your strategic thinking, and your people skills. That's not just lip service. If done well, it can be true. But you have to walk the talk. Provide training. Show employees how they can partner with LAMs. Maybe you set up an AI-empowered center of excellence that shares success stories, fosters internal champions, and offers practical help in adapting workflows. Another crucial piece is organizational structure. If your business is heavily siloed, you might find it challenging to get buy-in across departments for a shared LAM platform. So some reorganization, or at least an integrative governance body, might be necessary. Also, be prepared for a shift in required skill sets. If more tasks get automated, humans might need to develop new capabilities, like oversight of AI, data analysis, or higher-level problem solving. For executives, there's also a mindset shift. You must think of AI not as a side project or an IT initiative, but as a core strategic function that demands executive attention and resource allocation. Because let's face it, once you open the door to LAMs and see the potential for automation, it cascades across multiple areas of the organization. That's both the promise and the challenge. Shimmer, perhaps you can share some thoughts on the biggest pitfalls to avoid in rolling out LAM projects.
Sure, host. Pitfall number 1, jumping in without a clear use case that aligns with business goals. I've seen organizations say, we need AI because it's the future, but they lack a tangible ROI-focused project. Result? Disillusionment. Next, ignoring the data factor. Like we said, if your data is disorganized, incomplete, or contradictory, your LAM will stumble. Another pitfall is underestimating the complexity of environment integration. People assume they can just throw an LLM on top of their existing systems and voila, automation. But the agent layer that interacts with GUIs, APIs, or hardware can be quite intricate. You need a robust software framework with error handling, logging, security measures, you name it. Also, failing to involve key stakeholders early can be a big mistake. If end users or department heads aren't consulted, they might push back later. Or worse, you build a LAM solution that doesn't actually solve their biggest pain points. Another pitfall, ignoring regulatory and compliance aspects. In certain industries, actions performed by an AI agent might need official sign-offs or must adhere to data privacy rules. You can't just let the LAM do whatever it wants. And finally, ignoring continuous improvement or maintenance. This is not a set-it-and-forget-it scenario. Over time, your environment changes, your tasks evolve, your software stack gets updates, and your LAM must keep learning. That means allocating budget and team capacity for ongoing refinement. Otherwise, you risk having your LAM become stale and break down at the worst possible moments. Sri, how would you sum up the best ways to scale from a single pilot to an enterprise-wide rollout?
I'd say start small, refine thoroughly, then replicate. The single pilot project is your laboratory for developing the best practices in data collection, training, environment integration, and governance. Document every success, every failure, and every tweak you made. Then you create a repeatable framework or playbook that your enterprise can follow. For instance, you might have a standard data structure for your task-action pairs, a proven environment integration library, a permission system that scales, etc. Once you have that foundation, you can begin expanding to new use cases. Maybe the finance department hears about how HR automated job application workflows and wants in on the action. At that point, you replicate the process. Identify the tasks, gather the data, train or fine-tune the LAM, deploy it, measure the outcomes, and keep refining. But always keep an eye on synergy. If multiple departments use the same LAM, or at least the same underlying model, can they share knowledge? For example, can the LAM learn from patterns in marketing tasks and apply some of that insight to tasks in sales? That can be a big advantage if your data is consolidated. On the flip side, you might need separate LAM instances if the tasks are drastically different or if there are strong compliance boundaries, so it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Another crucial scaling factor is training your workforce and building trust. Because if users don't trust the system, they'll either bypass it or feed it bogus data. So continuous internal education and communication from leadership about the strategic importance of LAM is key. Over time, if you handle that well, you'll see more organic demand for LAM solutions across the enterprise because people see the time savings and efficiency gains. That's when you get that real digital transformation effect.
Exactly, Shri. And that trust factor can be boosted by letting people see the LAM's reasoning or plan in a user-friendly interface, like, here's what I'm going to do next. Open file X, highlight text Y, than send an email to Z. People often feel more comfortable if they can see the steps. If they spot an error, they can intervene. This also fosters a sense of collaboration between human and AI. And ironically, that sense of collaboration is what helps organizations scale quickly because employees realize they're not being replaced. They're being supported by a digital coworker that can handle tedious tasks. Host, I think it might be good to shift gears a bit and talk about the timeline to a future where everything is run by LAMs. Is that realistic, or do we see a more incremental approach?
Let's definitely talk about that. I think a lot of folks have the Hollywood vision of an AI that runs entire corporations autonomously. I'm sorry, CEO, I can't do that. But realistically, we're looking at an incremental approach for the foreseeable future. As Shimmer and Shri have said, the near term is specialized LAMs that excel at particular domains. Full-blown, universal AGI that can run everything seamlessly might still be a long way off. Nonetheless, for forward-looking CxOs, understanding the potential of LAM technology and planning for its integration into your digital infrastructure is essential. Because we are definitely heading toward an era where AI systems handle not just rote tasks, but increasingly complex operations. The pace at which this evolves will depend on regulatory frameworks, advances in AI safety, hardware improvements, and also the willingness of organizations to invest in these solutions. If you wait for it to become as easy as flipping a switch, you might be left behind by competitors who are already enjoying the efficiencies LAMs offer. But if you jump in without a plan, you might waste money and cause chaos. So it's a strategic balancing act. Let's do this. Before we wrap up, I'll give each expert a chance for final thoughts, something they want every CxO listening to take away from this deep dive. Shimmer, your closing thoughts?
Sure, host. If I could leave executives with one thought, it's that LAMs are both a technology leap and an organizational shift. Yes, you need good data and robust frameworks, but you also need the vision to see where AI-driven automation can truly move the needle for your business. That means not just replicating old processes in an automated fashion, but sometimes reimagining those processes altogether. Think big, start small, iterate quickly, and keep that strategic perspective. LAMs won't solve everything overnight, but used correctly, they can unlock significant competitive advantages. That's my main takeaway.
I'll jump in, host. My biggest advice is, don't underestimate the importance of governance and safety. I know. It's not the most thrilling topic, but it's crucial. Building trust among your workforce, your customers, and your stakeholders is everything. If you can demonstrate that your LAM deployments are responsible, secure, and transparent, you'll earn the social license to keep expanding. So yeah, approach this with ambition, but also with caution. The technology is exciting, but it needs guardrails to really shine.
I'd add that the future of LAMs is about bridging that gap between passive intelligence and actionable intelligence. We've come a long way from AI that just helps us talk. Now we have AI that actually does. That's powerful, but it requires a shift in how we structure our organizations, train our employees, and design our processes. The payoff, though, can be remarkable. Streamlined operations, reduced error rates, faster go-to-market times, and a workforce empowered to focus on innovation. If you embrace LAMs thoughtfully, you're setting yourself up for a new wave of productivity and growth.
Well said. Thanks so much to all three of you, Shimmer, Shri, Venus, for a truly in-depth conversation about large action models. I hope every CxO listening has a better handle on what LAMs are, why they matter, and how to start implementing them. The future is bright, but it won't come automatically. It requires planning, investment, and a collaborative mindset across the enterprise. For everyone tuning in, thanks for joining us on this 45-minute deep dive. We'll be back soon with more insights on how AI is reshaping the business world. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and don't be afraid to take those first steps into the realm of actionable AI. Who knows? Maybe the next time we record this show, we'll have a LAM handling the technical production in real time. One can dream, right? Stay curious, everyone, and we'll catch you next time on AI Horizons for CxOs.